I secretly opened our marriage, and now I'm desperate to win back my husband. The moment I see the notification pop up on my phone, my heart stops. It's just a message, but I know what it means. Everything I've been hiding, all the secrets I've kept, it's about to explode. It all started innocently enough. Or at least that's what I told myself. Paul, my husband, was traveling constantly for work, leaving me alone for weeks at a time. The loneliness was suffocating. At first, I tried to keep busy. Work, friends, hobbies. I filled every hour of the day with distractions, trying to ignore the gnawing emptiness in our marriage. But the more I tried, the harder it became. And then, one night, a friend mentioned something that stuck in my head. Opening her marriage. It brought us closer, she said. It saved us. The idea festered, tugging at the back of my mind until I couldn't ignore it anymore. I convinced myself that it would be the same for Paul and me, that if we both had a little more freedom, our relationship would thrive. But I never told him. I didn't ask. I didn't have the courage. Instead, I opened the door for myself, quietly, secretly. It was just a few dates at first, a way to fill the time while Paul was away. No feelings, no attachments, just fun. And it worked. At least, it did for a while. I felt alive again, energized in a way I hadn't for years. But then I met Josh, and things started spiraling out of control. Josh wasn't just a fling. He was everything I'd been missing. He listened, he understood, and before I knew it, what was supposed to be casual became something more. I was in over my head, and now it's all catching up to me. I look at the text again, my stomach churning. It's from Josh. He's asking when we can meet next, but I know I need to put an end to this. Paul's coming home in a few hours, and the weight of my guilt is unbearable. I can't keep lying to him, living this double life. I know I should tell him the truth, but how do you confess something like this? How do you destroy someone's trust completely and expect them to forgive you? I tell myself I'll do it tonight. I'll come clean, tell Paul everything, and pray he understands. But deep down, I know it's too late. I pace the living room, trying to figure out how to begin. My heart pounds in my chest, my palms are sweaty, and my thoughts are racing. Paul is due home any minute, and I'm teetering on the edge of panic. I've rehearsed the conversation 1,000 times in my head, but every scenario ends the same way. With him leaving, I glance at the clock. He'll be walking through that door soon, and I'm not ready. How could I be? There's no way to prepare for this. No perfect set of words that will make it okay. But I have to do it. I have to own up to what I've done. When I hear the front door creak open, it feels like time slows. I can hear Paul drop his keys on the counter, the familiar sound of his shoes on the hardwood floor. For a split second, I think about just pretending everything's normal, pushing the whole conversation to another day. But I know better. There's no more hiding. Not now. He walks into the room, a tired smile on his face. "Hey," he says, tossing his bag on the couch. "It's good to be home." I open my mouth to respond, but nothing comes out. The words are stuck, lodged deep in my throat. My chest feels tight, like I can't get enough air. How do I do this? How do I tell him I've been living a lie? "Diana?" He notices my hesitation. "What's going on? You okay?" Here it is. This is the moment I've been dreading. I take a deep breath, willing myself to just get it over with. "Paul," I say, my voice shaking. "We need to talk." The look on his face shifts from curiosity to concern. He walks closer, studying me like he's trying to figure out what's wrong before I say it. "I've been lying to you," I blurt out. My hands tremble as I speak. "For a long time." Paul blinks, his face going blank for a second. "What are you talking about?" I opened our marriage." The words feel sharp in my mouth. "Without telling you." He freezes, the color draining from his face. "What?" "I started seeing other people while you were away," I admit, the guilt crashing down on me. "It was a mistake. I thought it would make things better, but it didn't." His eyes widen with shock, then narrow with anger. He steps back like I've physically struck him. "You're kidding, right?" I shake my head, tears welling in my eyes. "I'm so sorry, Paul. I thought." "You thought what?" he snaps, his voice cold and cutting. That betraying me would somehow fix our marriage? You thought sneaking around behind my back was going to help? I can see the hurt in his eyes, the devastation setting in. I've broken him, just like I knew I would. I didn't want to hurt you, I say, choking on my words. I thought I could keep it separate, that it wouldn't affect us. Paul laughs bitterly. You thought wrong. He turns away, running a hand through his hair, trying to process everything I've just dropped on him. I'm ending it, I say quickly, desperate to salvage whatever's left. I'm done with it. You're the only one I want, Paul. He spins around, his face contorted with disbelief. You don't get to say that now, Diana. Not after everything you've done. How long? His voice cracks. How long have you been cheating on me? I feel my heart shatter as I see the pain I've caused. There's no hiding anymore, no way to soften the blow. I have to face the consequences of my actions. 6 months, I whisper, barely able to say the words out loud. Paul's face tightens, and I can see the shock sink deeper. He paces the room, shaking his head, trying to wrap his mind around what I've just confessed. Every step he takes feels like a mile between us, widening the distance that I know I may never be able to close. 6 months? He repeats, his voice hollow. You've been seeing other people for 6 months? And I didn't know? His eyes meet mine, filled with disbelief. Was I just some kind of fool, living in a fantasy while you were out? No, Paul, no. I step forward, desperate to explain, but he puts his hand up, stopping me in my tracks. It wasn't like that. I never stopped loving you. I thought. You thought what? He interrupts, his voice rising. That you could have your cake and eat it too? That you could sleep around and then come home and pretend everything was fine? I was lonely, I cry, the emotion finally breaking through. You were never here, Paul. You were always gone, always working. I felt like I was invisible to you. I thought if I had something for myself, something separate, I could fill that void without burdening you. The words spill out, a jumbled mess of guilt and regret, but they sound pathetic even to my own ears. Paul's expression hardens, the hurt giving way to anger now. Burden me, he snaps. You didn't think that maybe we could talk about it? That maybe you could tell me how you were feeling instead of sneaking behind my back? I try to step closer, but he backs away again. The distance between us feels like a chasm now, impossible to cross. My stomach twists with fear that this might be the end of us. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, I admit quietly. Every time I tried, you were too tired or too stressed. I didn't want to add to it. Paul shakes his head, his jaw clenched. You should have added to it, Diana. That's what a marriage is. We deal with things together. You don't just, his voice catches, and he looks away for a moment, struggling to find the words. You don't just go find someone else because things get hard. I feel tears streaming down my face, but I don't wipe them away. I deserve this pain. I deserve every ounce of his anger. I know I screwed up, I say, my voice breaking. I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm begging you, please, Paul, don't walk away from us. We can fix this. I'll do anything. His eyes are blazing with anger, but behind it, I can still see the pain. It's the same pain I've been feeling for months, the same longing for connection that I thought I could fix by opening that door. But I was wrong. So wrong. Paul stares at me for a long moment, the silence hanging heavy between us. Finally, he exhales, his shoulders sagging. He looks defeated, like the fight's drained out of him. Do you even know what you've done? He asks, his voice quiet but full of raw emotion. You didn't just cheat on me, Diana. You broke something I'm not sure can ever be fixed. Trust. Once that's gone, it doesn't come back. I step closer, my hands trembling. But it can. It has to. I love you, Paul. I love us. I made a mistake, but I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. He doesn't move. His eyes lock on mine, searching for something. Anything, maybe hope, maybe the woman he thought he knew. But whatever he's looking for, I don't know if he finds it. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. It's the worst thing he could say, but I can't blame him. I've destroyed us, and now I don't know how to rebuild what I've broken. Paul turns away from me, his back rigid, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I can feel the tension radiating from him, and it's like the room itself is holding its breath, waiting for what comes next. My heart races, each second feeling like an eternity. I want to reach out to him, but I'm afraid that even the slightest touch will make him leave for good. I gave everything to you, he says, his voice low and dangerous, still not turning to face me. I trusted you. I never questioned where you were or what you were doing because I believed you would never hurt me like this. And now, he lets out a bitter laugh. Now, I feel like I don't even know you. His words cut deeper than any accusation could. It's the truth that hurts the most. I was supposed to be his safe place, the person he could count on, and I've shattered that. The guilt is overwhelming. How did I let it get this far? I'm still me, Paul, I say, my voice barely steady. I'm still the woman who loves you, who wants to make things right. I lost myself for a while. Lost yourself? He repeats, finally turning to face me. His eyes are blazing with anger and disbelief. You didn't lose yourself, Diana. You chose this. You chose to go behind my back. You chose to lie to me, to sneak around, and to betray everything we had. I flinch at his words, but I don't argue. He's right. Every step of this, I made the choice to keep going, to dig myself deeper into a hole I can't crawl out of now. I thought it was what I needed. I whisper, hating myself for the weakness in my voice. I thought it would make me happy, but all it's done is ruin everything. Paul shakes his head slowly, disbelief etched across his face. You don't get it, do you? You didn't just ruin this. You ruined me too. You made me believe everything was fine, that we were okay, and all along, you were out there with someone else. You let me be a fool. I never wanted to hurt you like this, I say, choking back a sob. I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't come between us. Well, it did, he snaps, his anger flaring again. And now I have to live with the fact that I wasn't enough for you. That while I was out there busting my ass to build a life for us, you were off finding, what? Something better? No. I cry, stepping forward, desperate for him to understand. It wasn't like that, Paul. It wasn't about finding someone better. I was lost, confused, and I made the worst decision of my life. But it never meant I didn't love you. I've always loved you. He's quiet for a moment, just staring at me, his expression unreadable. When he finally speaks, his voice is so quiet, I almost don't hear him. Love isn't enough, Diana. Those words hang in the air between us, heavy and final. I feel my heart drop, like all hope is slipping through my fingers. He starts pacing again, running a hand through his hair, clearly struggling with what to do next. Do you know what the worst part of this is? He asks, his voice cold. It's not just that you cheated. It's that you lied. For 6 months, you've been lying to my face, letting me believe we had something real. How am I supposed to come back from that? I have no answer. The silence is unbearable, and I feel like the walls are closing in on me. My mind races, trying to find the words to fix this, but I know there's nothing I can say. I've broken something that might never be whole again. I need some time, Paul finally says, his voice hoarse. I need to think about what happens next. Panic grips me. Please, don't go. Don't leave, Paul. We can work through this together. I know we can. But he just shakes his head, his eyes full of sadness. I'm not leaving yet. But I can't promise anything, Diana. I don't know if I can stay. The weight of his words crushes me. I feel like the ground beneath my feet is crumbling, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Paul stands there, his expression unreadable, and I know that everything we had, everything we built together, is teetering on the edge of collapse. I want to scream, to beg him to stay, to fix it somehow, but I know that's not how this works. You can't fix something this broken with words alone. I'm going to take a walk, Paul says suddenly, his voice distant, like he's talking to himself as much as to me. I need to clear my head. Paul, please. I take a step forward, but he's already moving toward the door, grabbing his jacket off the hook. His movements are robotic, like he's running on autopilot, just trying to get out of the house. He doesn't even look back at me as he opens the door and walks out, the soft click of the door closing behind him sounding louder than it should. The silence that follows is deafening. I stand frozen in the middle of the living room, my heart racing, my body trembling. What do I do now? My mind is a whirlwind of panic, regret, and fear. He's gone, and I don't know if he's coming back. Not just from this walk, but back to me, to us. I sink onto the couch, burying my face in my hands as the tears come in waves. I knew this moment would be hard, but I didn't realize it would feel like this. As if everything inside me is unraveling, piece by piece. I feel so small, so alone. The very thing I was trying to avoid, this unbearable loneliness, has come crashing down on me tenfold. I sit there for what feels like hours, my mind replaying every moment of the past 6 months. Every lie, every time I looked Paul in the eyes and pretended nothing was wrong. How did I think this would end any differently? I was selfish, plain and simple, and now I'm paying the price. Worse, Paul is paying the price, and it's all my fault. My phone buzzes on the coffee table, breaking through my fog of self-loathing. I glance at the screen and see Josh's name flash across it. A pit forms in my stomach. He has no idea what's happening, no idea that I'm sitting here on the verge of losing my husband. For a split second, I consider answering. I want to hear his voice, something familiar, something that might distract me from this pain. But as soon as the thought enters my mind, I shove it away. How could I even think about calling him right now? He's part of the problem. He's a reminder of everything I've done wrong. The phone buzzes again. Another message from Josh, but I ignore it. I can't think about him right now. I can't think about anything but Paul. I stare at the front door, willing him to come back inside. Maybe if he comes back soon, it'll mean there's still hope. Maybe we can talk through this, start to rebuild. But with every passing minute, that hope fades a little more. Time drags on, and Paul doesn't return. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare I can't wake up from, each moment stretching out painfully slow, the anxiety building in my chest. What if he never comes back? What if this is it? The house feels too big, too quiet. Every shadow seems menacing, every creak of the floorboards making me jump. I grab my phone again, checking for any message from Paul, but there's nothing. I think back to our wedding day. How happy we were. How full of hope and love. We had it all, or at least it felt that way. And now, because of me, we're on the verge of losing everything. The guilt is unbearable, but the fear is worse. Fear that Paul will never forgive me. Fear that I've destroyed something that can't be repaired. Fear that I'll be left with nothing but regret. I don't know how long I sit there, drowning in my own thoughts, but eventually, I hear the sound of the door creaking open. My heart leaps into my throat, and I stand, my hands trembling as Paul steps back inside. He looks exhausted, emotionally drained, his face a mask of conflict. I can tell he's been thinking, really thinking, and I brace myself for whatever comes next. Paul doesn't say anything at first. He just stands there, his eyes scanning the room as if he's trying to gather himself. My heart is pounding in my chest, and I'm too scared to speak, afraid that one wrong word will shatter what little remains between us. Finally, he exhales deeply, running a hand through his hair. I've been walking around for an hour, trying to figure out how the hell we ended up here, he says, his voice low and raw. And I still don't have an answer. I thought I knew you, Diana. I thought we were solid, that we had something real. But now I don't know what to believe anymore. I know, I whisper, taking a step toward him. I know I've destroyed that trust, but I swear to you, I never wanted to lose us. I still want us. He looks at me, and I can see the conflict raging inside him. Do you even know what you want anymore? His voice is quieter now, almost broken. Because right now, it feels like I was just a placeholder, something to keep you company while you figured out what you really wanted. No, I say quickly, shaking my head. That's not true. I love you, Paul. I love you more than anything. I was so lost, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I made a terrible mistake, but it doesn't change how much you mean to me. He lets out a bitter laugh. You say you love me, but how am I supposed to believe that? How can you love someone and do what you did? You had a choice, Diana. You chose them over me, every single time. His words hit like a sledgehammer, and I feel the tears welling up again. I want to argue, to tell him that it wasn't like that, but deep down, I know he's right. I chose to keep going down that path. I chose to lie, to hide, to keep betraying him. I don't know how to fix this, I say, my voice trembling. But I want to. I'll do anything, Paul. Just tell me what to do. He shakes his head slowly, his expression softening for just a moment. I don't know if this is something you can fix, Diana. Trust isn't just something you patch up with apologies. It's built over time, and once it's broken, he trails off, looking down at the floor as if the weight of the situation is too much to bear. Please don't give up on us, I beg, my voice breaking. We've been through so much together. Don't throw it all away because of my mistakes. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Paul looks up at me, and for a moment, I think I see a flicker of something in his eyes. Something like hope, or at least the possibility of hope. But just as quickly, it's gone, replaced by the same hurt and anger that's been simmering since I confessed. I'm not throwing anything away, he says quietly. You did that. You made the choice to break what we had. Now, I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything left to salvage. I take a deep breath, my heart aching. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for one more chance. Let me show you that I can be the wife you deserve. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you if I have to. He stares at me, his expression unreadable. The silence stretches between us, thick with uncertainty. I can see the battle going on inside him. The part of him that wants to hold on to what we had, and the part of him that's too hurt to keep fighting. I need time, he says finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't just make a decision right now, Diana. I need time to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again. Those words cut deep, but I nod, knowing that I can't push him any further right now. He's right. He needs time, and all I can do is give him that. I understand. I say softly, my voice breaking. Take all the time you need. Just, please don't shut me out completely. Paul nods, but his eyes are distant, as if he's already a million miles away. He turns toward the stairs, and I watch as he slowly makes his way up, disappearing from view. The sound of his footsteps fades, and I'm left standing in the middle of the living room, alone. My heart aches with the fear that I've lost him for good. I've never felt so helpless, so small. All I can do now is wait and hope that somehow, some way, we can find our way back to each other. The next few days are pure agony. Paul doesn't leave the house, but he might as well be miles away. He keeps to himself, staying in the guest room and barely speaking to me unless absolutely necessary. Every time I pass him in the hallway, there's this heavy silence between us, like we're strangers. It's the silence that kills me the most, this vast, unspoken tension that neither of us knows how to break. I spend my time tiptoeing around the house, trying to give him space, but also hoping he'll come to me, that we can talk. Each time I hear his footsteps or catch a glimpse of him sitting alone, I feel this sickening hope that maybe, just maybe, he's ready to talk. But every time, I'm disappointed. He avoids me like I'm a ghost. At night, the house feels colder, emptier. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision I've made over the last 6 months. How did I let things spiral this far out of control? What was I thinking? I want to call someone, anyone, just to talk it out. But who would I call? My friends would be disgusted with me if they knew the truth, and I can't burden my family with this. They would never look at me the same way again. I'm stuck in this prison of my own making, alone with nothing but my guilt and regret. Then, one evening, after nearly a week of living in this limbo, Paul finally speaks to me. He's standing by the kitchen window, staring out at the darkening sky, his hands stuffed into his pockets. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, nervously picking at the edge of my mug, when I hear him clear his throat. I've been thinking, he says, his voice low but clear. I look up, my heart hammering in my chest. About what you said about us. I set the mug down carefully, afraid to say anything that might break this fragile moment. And? I ask softly. He turns around to face me, and for the first time in days, he's really looking at me. Not through me, but at me. His eyes are filled with something I can't quite place. Pain, yes, but something else too. Maybe uncertainty. Maybe doubt. I don't know if I can do this, he says quietly, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. Every time I look at you, all I can think about is what you did. How you went behind my back. How you broke everything I thought we had. I swallow hard, nodding, knowing that nothing I say will make those feelings go away. I know, and I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to wait, Paul, however long it takes. He leans against the counter, crossing his arms over his chest, his expression conflicted. I don't know if time is enough, Diana. I don't know if anything is enough. You broke something that can't be unbroken. His words are a dagger, twisting deeper with every syllable. I feel the tears burning in my eyes, but I hold them back. I don't want to cry anymore. It won't help, and it won't change what I did. What do you want to do? I ask quietly, my voice trembling. If you can't stay, if you can't get past this, just tell me, Paul. I need to know. For a long moment, he doesn't answer. He just stares down at the floor, his jaw clenched, his fists tight at his sides. I can see how much this is hurting him, and it kills me to know that I'm the reason why. I did this. I put that pain in his eyes. Finally, he looks up at me, and what he says next sends my world crashing down all over again. I think I want a divorce. The air is sucked out of the room. I feel like I've been punched in the chest, like the floor has been ripped out from beneath me. I knew this might be coming. I've been preparing myself for it, but hearing those words out loud, from his mouth, is worse than I could have ever imagined. I can't speak. My throat is too tight, my mind racing, trying to process what he just said. Divorce. The end. After everything we've been through, everything we've built, he's ready to walk away. Paul, I managed to whisper, my voice cracking. Please, can't we try counseling? Something? He shakes his head slowly, his expression full of sadness. I don't think counseling can fix this, Diana. It's too much. I don't trust you anymore, and without trust, what's left? I feel the tears spill over, and I stand up, desperate to close the distance between us. But I love you. I cry, my voice breaking. I know I messed up, but I can change, Paul. I can prove to you that I'm still the woman you fell in love with. He looks at me, and for the first time, I see something like defeat in his eyes. I don't know if that woman exists anymore, he says quietly. Maybe she's been gone for a long time. Paul's words hang in the air, heavy and devastating. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, and his next decision will either pull me back to safety or push me over the edge. I'm desperate to say something, anything, to convince him that the woman he loved is still here, that she hasn't disappeared under all the lies and mistakes I've made. Paul, please, I say, my voice trembling. Don't do this. I know I've hurt you, but we've been through so much together. We can get through this too. We can rebuild. He looks away, his expression hardening. It's not that simple, Diana. You can't just say sorry and expect everything to go back to the way it was. You broke my trust, our trust. I don't even know who you are anymore. Each word is like a slap in the face, but I can't give up. Not now. But I am still me, I plead, stepping closer to him. I made a mistake, but I'm still the same person who loves you, who wants to spend my life with you. Please don't throw it all away. Paul shakes his head, his eyes full of sadness. You're asking me to pretend like everything's fine when it's not. You're asking me to forgive you for something that's unforgivable. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. I reach out, touching his arm, but he pulls back, the distance between us more than just physical now. I'll do anything, I whisper, the tears streaming down my face. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I swear, I'll never hurt you like this again. He stands there, staring at me, and for a moment, I think I see a flicker of something in his eyes, something like hesitation. But then, just as quickly, it's gone. I can't do this, he says softly. I can't keep living in a marriage where I feel like I'm constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. I deserve better than this, Diana. I deserve someone who won't betray me. The finality in his voice shatters the last bit of hope I've been clinging to. He's made up his mind. He's leaving, and there's nothing I can do to stop him. I feel my knees go weak, and I collapse onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. The sobs come in waves, uncontrollable and suffocating. This is it. I've lost him. Everything we built, everything we dreamed of, it's all crumbling around me, and it's my fault. Paul doesn't move for a moment, and I wonder if he's going to say something, maybe even change his mind. But then I hear him let out a long breath, and when I look up, he's already turning to leave the room. "I'll give you some time to get things sorted," he says, his voice distant. "We can talk about how to handle the divorce later." Divorce. The word echoes in my mind, so loud it's deafening. I feel like I'm watching my life fall apart in slow motion, helpless to stop it. "Paul, please don't leave me," I beg, my voice breaking. "I'll do anything. Just don't leave." But he doesn't respond. He just walks out of the room, his footsteps fading down the hall, and I'm left sitting there, drowning in the reality of what I've done. I don't know how long I sit there, staring at the empty space where he stood. My mind is racing, replaying every memory we've shared, every happy moment, and I can't stop thinking about how I destroyed it all. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have risked everything for something that meant nothing in the end? Eventually, I hear the sound of Paul's car starting in the driveway. He's leaving. I rush to the window, my heart pounding, and watch as he pulls out of the driveway, disappearing down the street. He's gone. The house feels so quiet, so empty without him. It's like the silence itself is pressing down on me, suffocating me. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go from here. All I can think about is the mess I've made, the life I've destroyed, and the future I might never get back. I sink to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest, and sob until I can't breathe anymore. I've lost him. I've lost everything. The days that follow blur together in a haze of guilt, regret, and unbearable silence. Paul hasn't come back. He hasn't called, hasn't sent a message. Nothing. It's like he's erased me from his life overnight. I feel like I'm disappearing too, fading into the emptiness of this house we once called home. I spend hours replaying our last conversation in my head, analyzing every word, every gesture, trying to figure out where I went wrong, how I could have fixed it. But the truth is, I know exactly where it all went wrong. The second I opened that door to infidelity, I set us on this path to destruction. And now, it feels like I'm living in the ruins of a life I used to know. I haven't spoken to Josh, either. I've cut him out completely. I deleted his number, ignored his texts, and removed myself from that world. I can't go back there, not after everything. It's toxic, and it's part of the reason I'm here now, drowning in my own guilt. But every time I try to think of a way forward, all I can see is the empty spot where Paul used to be. All I can hear is his voice, telling me that he can't trust me, that he doesn't know who I am anymore. And worst of all, I can't shake the feeling that he's right. Maybe I'm not the person he thought I was, the person I thought I was. I try to distract myself. I clean the house from top to bottom, hoping that if I scrub hard enough, I can wash away the guilt. I go for long walks, hoping the fresh air will clear my mind. But it never works. Every place I go, every street I walk down, I'm haunted by memories of us, holding hands, laughing, planning our future together. Now those memories feel like ghosts, reminders of a life I've thrown away. The worst part is not knowing what comes next. Does Paul even want to talk to me again? Is this it? Is our marriage really over? I've never felt so out of control, so powerless. All I want is to make things right, but I don't even know where to begin. Then, one afternoon, the doorbell rings. For a second, my heart leaps. I think it's Paul, maybe coming back to talk, to give us another chance. But when I open the door, it's not him. It's a woman, dressed in a suit, holding a stack of papers. "Diana Walker?" she asks. I nod, my throat tightening. "I'm here to serve you divorce papers," she says, handing me the stack. Her tone is professional, emotionless, like she's done this 1,000 times before. Divorce papers. The words hit me like a freight train. My hand shakes as I take the papers, my vision blurring as I stare at the bold letters on the front page. This is real. It's happening. "I'm sorry," the woman says softly before turning and walking away. leaving me standing in the doorway, clutching the papers in my trembling hands. I closed the door slowly, my mind spinning. Paul really did it. He's filed for divorce. I thought there was still time. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could work through this. But now, staring at these papers, I realize that time is running out. I sink down onto the floor, the papers slipping from my hands, scattering across the hardwood. This is it. This is the consequence of my actions, laid out in black and white. There's no more pretending, no more hoping for a miracle. Paul wants out, and I have no one to blame but myself. I sit there for what feels like hours, my mind numb, staring at the papers without really seeing them. My chest feels heavy, like it's caving in, and I can't breathe. This is the end of us. The worst part isn't the papers, though. It's the finality of it. The realization that I've lost Paul, maybe for good, that he's choosing to walk away from me, from everything we built, and I can't even argue with him. I know I deserve this. I betrayed him in the worst way possible, and now I'm paying the price. I reach for my phone, my fingers hovering over Paul's contact. I want to call him, to beg him to reconsider, to give me one last chance to prove that I can change. But I can't bring myself to do it. What would I even say? I've already said it all, and nothing's changed. So, instead, I put the phone down, my hands shaking, and stare at the papers again. I don't want to sign them, but I know I have no choice. Paul has made his decision, and now I have to live with it. The next few days are like living in a fog. The divorce papers sit on the coffee table, taunting me every time I pass them. I can't bring myself to sign them, not yet. It feels too final, too much like giving up. But the longer they sit there, the more I realize that I don't have a choice. Paul's made up his mind, and all I'm doing is delaying the inevitable. I try to think about the future, about what my life will look like without Paul in it. It feels impossible to imagine. Every plan I ever had, every dream for the future, it all involved him. Now, all those dreams are ashes, and I'm left trying to figure out how to build a new life from the wreckage. I go back and forth in my mind, debating whether I should call him. Maybe if I just talk to him one more time, I can change his mind. Maybe if I explain everything, really explain how lost I was, he'll understand. But I know deep down that it's too late for explanations. Paul doesn't want to hear it. He's already moved on, already made his decision. One morning, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at my untouched cup of coffee when my phone rings. My heart skips a beat, hoping it's Paul, but when I check the screen, it's my mom. I hesitate for a moment before answering, trying to collect myself. "Hey, Mom," I say, trying to sound normal, but my voice cracks. "Honey, what's wrong?" she asks immediately. "You don't sound like yourself." I take a deep breath, knowing I can't keep this from her any longer. "Paul filed for divorce," I say, my voice barely above a whisper. There's a long pause on the other end, and I can practically feel the shock through the phone. "Oh, Diana," she finally says, her voice filled with concern. "I had no idea things were so bad between you two. What happened?" For a moment, I think about lying, about telling her some half-truth to protect myself. But I'm too tired, too broken to keep lying. It's my fault, I admit. I cheated on him. There's another silence, and this time it's heavy, filled with disappointment. "Oh, Diana," she says quietly. "Why?" "I don't know," I say, my voice cracking. "I was so lonely, and he was always gone, and I made a stupid, horrible decision. And now I've ruined everything." My mom sighs, and I can hear the sadness in her voice. "I'm so sorry, honey. I don't even know what to say." I wipe at my eyes, trying to hold back the tears. "He's gone, Mom. He wants a divorce, and I can't blame him. I've destroyed everything." For the next few minutes, she listens as I pour out everything. The guilt, the regret, the fear that I've lost the only person who ever truly mattered to me. She's quiet, letting me talk, and I can hear the pain in her voice as she tries to comfort me. "We all make mistakes," she says softly, "but that doesn't mean you're beyond forgiveness. Maybe Paul just needs time. Maybe you need time, too." "I don't think time is enough," I say, shaking my head even though she can't see me. I broke something that can't be fixed. Diana, she says gently, I know it feels that way now, but you can't give up on yourself. You can't let this mistake define your whole life. You're stronger than that. I want to believe her, but right now, all I feel is broken. I'm a shell of the person I used to be, and I don't know how to start putting the pieces back together. After we hang up, I sit at the table for a long time, staring out the window at nothing in particular. My mom's words echo in my mind, but they feel hollow. How do you rebuild when the foundation has crumbled? How do you move forward when everything you cared about is gone? That evening, as the sun begins to set, I make a decision. I pick up the divorce papers from the coffee table and sit down at the kitchen counter. My hands tremble as I flip through them, reading the legal jargon that makes our separation sound so cold, so final. When I reach the page where I need to sign, I pause, my pen hovering over the paper. This is it. Once I sign this, there's no going back. It's the end of my marriage, the end of everything we built together. Tears blur my vision, but I force myself to sign, my heart breaking with every stroke of the pen. I finish, setting the pen down with shaking hands, and stare at the papers for a long time. It's done. It's over. I feel numb, hollow, like the reality of what I've just done hasn't fully hit me yet. But deep down, I know that I've just closed a chapter of my life that I'll never be able to reopen. As I sit there, alone in the quiet, I realize that I don't know who I am anymore without Paul. I've been so focused on trying to fix what I broke that I never thought about what happens next. Now, I have to face that reality. I have to figure out how to live without him. The next morning, I wake up with an ache in my chest, a heavy reminder of what I did the night before. I stare at the ceiling, my mind struggling to grasp the reality that my marriage is truly over. The divorce papers are signed, and there's no turning back now. I feel like I'm floating in this limbo, lost between the life I had with Paul and the uncertain future ahead of me. I drag myself out of bed and walk downstairs. The house feels emptier than ever, like the life has been sucked out of it. Every corner, every object is a reminder of the life we shared, of the love we had. And now, it's all gone. I don't know how long I can keep living like this, trapped in the memories of what we once were. I need to move forward, but I don't even know where to begin. How do you rebuild when the person who was your foundation is gone? I sit at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where Paul used to sit, where we used to have breakfast together, laugh, talk about our plans for the day. The silence is unbearable, but I don't know how to fill it. My phone buzzes, pulling me out of my thoughts. It's an email from Paul's lawyer, confirming that the divorce papers have been received and that the process will move forward. I feel my stomach twist as I read the words. It's really happening. This is real. For a moment, I want to throw my phone across the room, scream, do anything to release the pain that's building inside me. But instead, I just sit there, staring blankly at the screen, too exhausted to feel anything but numb. I'm not sure how long I sit there, lost in thought, but eventually, I force myself to get up. I need to do something, anything, to keep myself from drowning in this emptiness. I grab my coat and step outside, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. I walk aimlessly, my mind racing with thoughts I can't control. Everywhere I go, I see reminders of Paul, places we used to go together, moments we shared. It's like I can't escape him, even though he's no longer here. Eventually, I find myself at a park we used to visit. It's quiet, almost deserted, and I sit down on a bench, staring out at the empty playground. I remember how we used to come here on weekends, just the two of us, sitting on this very bench, talking about our future. We used to dream so big, so full of hope. Now, those dreams feel like they belong to someone else, someone who isn't me. As I sit there, my phone buzzes again. For a second, my heart jumps. Maybe it's Paul. Maybe he's had a change of heart. Maybe he wants to talk. But when I check the screen, it's not him. It's a message from Josh. I haven't spoken to him since everything blew up, and seeing his name on my screen feels like a punch to the gut. I don't want to deal with him. I don't want to be reminded of the mistake that cost me everything. His message is simple. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. You okay? I stare at the message for a long time, debating whether or not to respond. Part of me wants to delete it, pretend it never happened. But another part of me, the part that's still hurt, still desperate for comfort, wants to reply, wants to feel something other than this crushing guilt and loneliness. But I know I can't. I know that any interaction with Josh will only make things worse. I can't go down that road again. I've already lost too much because of him. I delete the message and put my phone away, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. It's a small step, but it feels like a step in the right direction. I can't undo what I've done, but I can stop making the same mistakes. I sit there for a while longer, watching the sun sink lower in the sky. As the park grows darker, I realize that I have no idea what my next step is. I'm standing at a crossroads, and every path feels uncertain, terrifying. But I know one thing. I can't keep living in the past. I can't keep clinging to what I lost. If I'm ever going to move forward, I have to let go of the guilt, the regret, and start figuring out who I am without Paul. It's easier said than done, but as I walk back home, the weight on my chest feels a little lighter. I know the road ahead won't be easy, but I have to believe that somewhere along the way, I'll find a way to rebuild, to heal, to forgive myself. The next few weeks feel like a slow-motion nightmare. Every day is a battle just to get out of bed, to function, to pretend that my life isn't falling apart. Paul's absence is a constant, gnawing ache, and the divorce process seems to move forward with a cold, mechanical efficiency. I don't know how I'm supposed to be okay with any of this, but I push through. I go to work, I smile at people, I tell my friends and family that I'm doing okay, when the truth is, I feel like I'm drowning. I avoid social media because I can't stand the idea of seeing Paul moving on with his life, while I'm stuck in this limbo, trying to figure out who I am without him. One night, as I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I decide I need help. I can't keep doing this alone. I grab my phone and search for local therapists, scrolling through the options until I find someone who seems right. I don't know why I haven't done this sooner. Maybe I've been too stubborn, thinking I could handle everything on my own. But now, I know I need someone to talk to, someone who can help me make sense of all the chaos in my head. I make the call the next morning and set up my first appointment. It's not an immediate fix, but for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm doing something proactive. Like maybe I'm finally taking a step toward healing, instead of just wallowing in my own misery. When the day of my appointment arrives, I'm nervous. What if the therapist thinks I'm a horrible person? What if they can't help me? But I push those thoughts aside and show up anyway. Dr. Fields is warm, with a calm energy that puts me at ease almost instantly. I sit across from her, fidgeting with my hands, unsure of where to begin. "Why don't we start by talking about why you're here?" she asks gently. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I've been carrying. "I cheated on my husband," I say, the words coming out thick with guilt. "I destroyed my marriage, and now he's divorcing me, and I don't know how to move on." She nods, her expression soft but serious. "That's a lot to carry. How are you feeling about all of it?" I almost laugh at the simplicity of the question. How am I feeling? I feel like I'm falling apart. I feel like I'll never forgive myself. I feel like I've ruined the only good thing in my life, and there's no going back. But instead, I just say, I feel lost. Dr. Fields doesn't push. She lets me talk, and for the first time in months, I let it all out. I tell her about the loneliness, the poor choices, the guilt that haunts me every day. I tell her about Paul, how much I loved him, how much I still love him, and how I've ruined it all. I don't hold anything back, and by the end of the session, I feel emotionally drained, but also lighter. "You've been through a lot," Dr. Fields says, her voice gentle, "but I want you to know that healing is possible. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but the fact that you're here, talking about it, is a good first step." I nod, wiping at my eyes. "I just don't know how to forgive myself." "That's something we'll work on," she assures me. But forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about accepting that you made mistakes, learning from them, and moving forward. It's a process, and it's okay to take it one day at a time. I leave the session feeling a glimmer of hope, something I haven't felt in a long time. It's not much, but it's enough to keep me going. Over the next few weeks, I continue therapy, and slowly, I begin to understand myself better. I realized that I wasn't just lonely because of Paul's absences. I was lonely because I had stopped connecting with myself, with who I really am. I had let that loneliness drive me into making terrible decisions, decisions that hurt the person I love most. But I also start to realize that hating myself forever isn't the solution. I start doing little things to take care of myself, going for walks, reading books I've been meaning to get to, trying to focus on the present instead of dwelling on the past. It's hard, and I still have moments where the guilt overwhelms me, but those moments are starting to come less frequently. Slowly, I'm starting to forgive myself, just like Dr. Field said. Then, one evening, out of nowhere, Paul calls. I stare at the phone for a long moment, my heart racing. I haven't heard his voice since that night he left, since he told me he wanted a divorce. I have no idea what he wants, but the fear and hope that surge through me are almost too much to handle. With trembling hands, I answer, "Hello?" "Diana," Paul says, his voice familiar but distant, like he's calling from another lifetime. "We need to talk." Paul's voice on the other end of the phone makes my heart race, a mix of fear and hope swirling in my chest. For a moment, I'm frozen, unsure how to respond. We haven't spoken in weeks, and hearing him say, "We need to talk," sends my mind spinning in 100 different directions. Is this it? Is he finally ready to close the book on us for good? Or is there some small chance he wants to find a way forward? "Paul," I manage to say, my voice shaking. "Okay, when?" "I'm outside," he says. "Can I come in?" Outside. My breath catches in my throat. He's here. I hadn't even thought to check. My hand shakes as I pull the door open, and there he is, standing on the front step. He looks the same, but different. Older, somehow, like these past few weeks have aged him. Or maybe it's just the weight of everything between us. I step aside, letting him in, my heart pounding in my chest. The house feels unbearably quiet as he steps into the living room, and I follow, unsure of what to say, what to do. The last time we were here together, everything fell apart. Now, it feels like we're standing on the edge of something just as fragile. Paul sits down on the couch, his movements slow and deliberate, and I take a seat across from him. For a long moment, we just sit there, the silence thick and uncomfortable. I don't know if I should speak first, or if I should wait for him to say whatever it is he came to say. Finally, he clears his throat, breaking the tension. "I've had a lot of time to think," he says quietly, his eyes fixed on the floor. "About everything. About us." My heart lurches, but I stay silent, waiting for him to continue. "When I asked for a divorce, I was angry," he says, his voice calm but heavy with emotion. "I felt betrayed, like everything we had was a lie. And I couldn't see a way past that. I couldn't imagine how we could ever go back to what we were." I nod, feeling a lump form in my throat. I want to tell him how sorry I am, how much I regret everything, but I don't want to interrupt. I need to hear what he has to say. "I still don't know if we can go back," he continues, finally looking up at me. "But I also realized that I wasn't perfect either. I wasn't there for you when you needed me. I was so wrapped up in work, in trying to build this life for us, that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me." Tears sting my eyes. "Paul, no, it's not your fault," I say quickly. "I made the choice. I'm the one who broke us." He holds up his hand, stopping me. "I know what you did was wrong, Diana, and it hurt. It still hurts. But I've been thinking, maybe I wasn't listening when you were trying to tell me how you felt. Maybe if I had been more present, things wouldn't have gotten so bad between us." I shake my head, tears falling freely now. "You don't deserve any blame. I should have talked to you. I should have told you how I was feeling instead of doing what I did." Paul lets out a long breath, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe. But the truth is, neither of us is perfect. We both made mistakes." I sit there, stunned, unsure of what this means. Is he saying that he wants to try again? Or is this just closure? A way to walk away with less pain? "So, what does that mean?" I ask quietly, my voice trembling. "Are you saying?" Paul looks at me, his eyes soft but conflicted. "I don't know what I'm saying exactly," he admits. "Part of me thinks we're too broken to fix. But another part of me wonders if we can find a way to rebuild. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm not ready to walk away completely. My heart leaps at his words, but I don't let myself get too hopeful. What do you want to do? I ask carefully, trying to keep my emotions in check. He sighs, rubbing his hands together as if he's trying to warm them. I want to see if there's still something worth saving, he says finally. But I need to be honest, I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. And without trust, I don't know how we can make it work. I swallow hard, my chest tightening. I know, I say, my voice small. I know I broke your trust, and I don't expect it to come back overnight. But if you're willing to try, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild it. Even if it takes a long time. Paul nods, but there's a sadness in his eyes that tells me this won't be easy. We need space, he says. Time to figure things out, both of us. I'm not saying we should jump back into anything, but maybe we can start by talking, by being honest, and we'll see where that takes us. I nod, relief and uncertainty flooding through me at the same time. I'd like that, I whisper. I want to try. Paul stands up, and I follow him to the door. As he turns to leave, he looks at me, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions, pain, hope, uncertainty. We'll see what happens, Diana, he says softly, but I can't promise anything. I nod, my heart aching. I understand. He leaves without another word, and as the door closes behind him, I feel a strange mix of emotions, hope, fear, and the weight of the work we have ahead of us. It's not a reconciliation, not yet, but it's a step, and for now, that's enough. The days after Paul's visit are filled with a strange kind of tension. There's no clear path forward, no definitive plan for how we'll rebuild what was broken, but there's something. It's fragile, tentative, but it's there, a sliver of hope. We start small, just as Paul suggested. We exchange a few texts here and there, simple things, how's work going? Or, hope you're doing okay. Each message feels like we're testing the waters, trying to see if we can communicate without reopening the wounds that are still so raw. It's hard. Every time my phone pings with a message from Paul, my heart skips a beat, filled with both excitement and fear. Part of me wants to dive back in, to tell him I'm ready to fix everything right now, but I know I have to be patient. This process will take time, maybe more time than I'm prepared for. Dr. Fields, my therapist, is my anchor through all of this. She reminds me that rebuilding trust is a slow process, that it won't happen overnight. She helps me work through my guilt, reminding me that while I can't change the past, I can control how I move forward. Her sessions are a lifeline, keeping me grounded as I navigate the mess I've created. One day, after a particularly tough session, I get a text from Paul. Want to grab a coffee? My heart races. It's the first time he suggested we meet in person since that night he asked for a divorce. I type out a quick yes before I can overthink it, and we agree to meet at a small cafe not far from where we used to live. When I arrive, I spot him right away, sitting at a table by the window, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. He looks tired, like he hasn't been sleeping well, and there's a tension in his posture that tells me he's just as nervous as I am. I take a deep breath and walk over, forcing a small smile as I sit down across from him. Hey, I say softly. Hey, he replies, his eyes flickering up to meet mine for a brief moment before looking away. The awkwardness between us is palpable, and for a few seconds, neither of us speaks. Finally, Paul clears his throat. I thought it'd be good for us to talk. In person. I nod, wrapping my hands around my own cup, more for something to do than because I'm thirsty. I think so too. We sit in silence for a moment, both of us seemingly unsure where to begin. There's so much to say, but the weight of everything we've been through makes it hard to find the right words. How have you been? Paul asks, his voice softer than I expected. I shrug, giving a half-hearted smile. I've been okay, I guess. Just trying to figure things out. What about you? He lets out a long sigh, rubbing the back of his neck. Same. It's been a lot. We lapse into silence again, and I feel the tension building between us. There's so much unsaid, so much hurt and confusion still hanging in the air, but we're both afraid to touch it, afraid it'll shatter whatever fragile piece we've managed to find. I've been seeing a therapist, I say finally, deciding to take the plunge. It's been helping me. I've been trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I hurt you the way I did. Paul's eyebrows raise in surprise. Really? That's good. I nod, staring down at my coffee cup. It hasn't been easy. I've had to face a lot of things about myself that I didn't want to admit. But I'm trying. I'm trying to be better. Paul leans back in his chair, his expression softening just a little. I'm glad. I think that's a good step. There's a long pause, and I feel like we're on the edge of something. Either a breakthrough or another collapse. My heart pounds in my chest as I look up at him, trying to gauge what he's thinking. I've been thinking too, Paul says slowly, his eyes locking onto mine. About everything. About us. And I know I said I wasn't sure if we could fix this, but he trails off, letting out a breath. I don't know. Part of me wonders if it's worth trying. My breath catches, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. Really? He nods, though there's still hesitation in his eyes. But I don't know if I can trust you again, Diana. That's the hardest part for me. I can't just pretend like nothing happened. I know, I say quickly, my heart pounding. I don't expect you to. I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll be completely transparent. No more lies, no more secrets. I want to rebuild that trust, even if it takes the rest of my life. Paul looks down at his coffee, his expression conflicted. I believe you want that. But trust, once it's broken, it's never the same. His words sting, but I understand. He's right. Things will never be the same as they were before. But maybe, just maybe, we can build something new, something different. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I say, my voice steady. I just want a chance to prove that I can be better. That we can be better. Paul doesn't respond right away, and the silence between us stretches out, heavy with uncertainty. When he finally speaks, his voice is quiet but firm. I'll think about it. I'm not ready to make any promises, but I'll think about it. I nod, my heart heavy but hopeful. It's not a promise, not yet, but it's something. It's more than I expected. We finish our coffee in relative silence, and when we part ways, there's a strange feeling of both hope and dread in my chest. This isn't a reconciliation. We're still standing on shaky ground, but at least now, there's a path forward, even if it's uncertain. As I walk home, the weight on my chest feels a little lighter. It's not over. Not yet. The following weeks are a strange, delicate dance between Paul and me. We talk more, brief texts, a few phone calls, but it's always cautious, as if we're both afraid to push too hard and shatter whatever fragile truce we've managed to create. I can tell he's still hesitant, still unsure of what the future holds for us. And honestly, I'm just as unsure. But the fact that we're talking at all, that he's willing to consider giving us another chance, is more than I ever thought possible. We meet up a few more times, for coffee, for walks, trying to ease back into each other's lives. Each time, the conversation is a little easier, the silence is a little less heavy. But the past still looms over us, like a shadow that neither of us can quite escape. One evening, after one of our meetings, I come home and sit down on the couch, staring at my phone. There's a message from Paul, something simple. It was good seeing you today. I smile at the message, feeling a warmth in my chest that I haven't felt in a long time. But it's immediately followed by a pang of guilt. We're trying to move forward, but the damage I caused is still there, still a barrier between us. No matter how hard I try, I can't shake the feeling that I don't deserve this chance, that I don't deserve him. Dr. Fields helps me work through those feelings, reminding me that rebuilding a relationship, especially after a betrayal like this, is a process. It's about small steps, she tells me in one of our sessions. You're not going to wake up one day and have everything fixed. But if you're both committed to the work, there's hope. Hope. That's the word I cling to. But as the days pass, I realize that I need to give Paul space to heal too. I can't push him, can't rush him. I have to let him come to his own decision about whether he can truly forgive me and trust me again. And I have to be okay with the fact that the answer might not be what I want. One night, Paul calls me. His voice sounds different, more serious than usual, and my stomach twists with nerves. Diana, he begins, After a few moments of small talk, I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened. I hold my breath, waiting for what comes next. I don't want to drag this out any longer, he says quietly. I've been trying to figure out if I can really move past what you did, if I can trust you again, and I just don't know if I can. My heart sinks. The words hit me like a punch to the chest, but I force myself to stay calm, to listen. I'm sorry, he continues, his voice heavy with emotion. I wanted to believe that we could make it work. I really did. But every time I look at you, I can't stop thinking about the betrayal. I can't stop thinking about how everything we had was a lie for those months. And I don't think I can live with that. I close my eyes, the tears already forming, but I nod, even though he can't see me. I understand, I whisper. I hurt you in the worst way possible, and I know that's something you can't just forget. It's not that I don't care about you, Paul says softly, because I do. I'll always care about you. But I think we both know that this isn't something we can come back from. Too much has changed. I sit there, clutching the phone, my heart breaking all over again. But this time, I know it's not out of anger or bitterness. It's just the reality of what I've done and the consequences that come with it. I'm sorry too, I say, my voice trembling, for everything. I wish I could take it all back, but I know I can't. And I'll never stop regretting it. There's a long silence between us, the weight of everything unsaid hanging in the air. I think it's best if we both move on, Paul says gently. We've been through so much, and I don't want to keep dragging us through more pain. I want us both to find happiness, even if it's not with each other. I nod again, tears streaming down my face. I want that too, I whisper. I want you to be happy, Paul. I really do. We say our goodbyes, and when I hang up, the silence in the room feels deafening. I sit there for a long time, letting the reality sink in. It's over. This time, for good. I thought I'd be devastated, and in a way, I am. But there's also a strange sense of relief, as if the weight of uncertainty has finally lifted. Paul and I loved each other, but we've both changed. The damage has been done, and no matter how much we both wanted to fix it, some things can't be repaired. It's going to hurt for a while, but I know that eventually, we'll both heal. We'll both move on and find new lives, new futures. It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward. As I sit there, staring out the window at the night sky, I take a deep breath. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I do know one thing. I'm not the same person I was before all of this. I've learned, I've grown, and I'm stronger for it. And that's something I can hold on to. Thanks for sticking with us until the end. If this story resonated with you, make sure to subscribe for more intense tales of love, betrayal, and personal growth. We dive deep into the complexities of relationships, exposing the raw emotions and dramatic moments that define them. Your likes and shares help us reach others who may need to hear these stories. So, smash that like button, share this video, and join our community of people navigating their own relationship battles. Together, we can shine a light on these challenging experiences. See you in the next one.